11 years ago, I walked into a police station and confessed to killing a man. Here's the problem. I didn't kill him. DNA proved it. They let me out. The papers called me a victim. Everyone believed it. Everyone was wrong. I confessed for one reason, a reason I've never told anyone. Not my lawyer, not my mother, not a single reporter. And this Monday, an excavator is going to dig that reason out of the ground. So listen carefully, because by the end of this story, you're going to wish they'd kept me locked up. My name is Daniel Weaver, at least that's the name on my release papers. In 2009, I lived in Calder's Mill, Ohio. One stoplight, one hardware store where I worked, and one unwritten rule. Everybody knows everybody's business. I'm going to tell you everything in order. Just don't judge me until the last line, because what you'll hear first is the story everyone already believes. And that story is not the whole story. In the fall of 2008, my wife Sarah left me. That's what people said. That's what I said too. 7 years married, the last few rough. The store bleeding money, Sarah on night shifts at the diner, fights about money, and the kids we never had. One October night, I came home to half an empty closet, suitcase gone, her car still in the garage, but people figured she got picked up. Somebody swore they saw a red truck out by the diner. I never filed a report. A wife walking out isn't a crime. For months, I was the town's favorite sad story. Shoulder squeezes at church, casseroles on the porch, and I learned to wear the right face, sad enough to be believed, steady enough not to be pitied. Now, you might be wondering why this story starts with Sarah and not with the murder. Hold on to that question. It's the most important question in this entire story. 3 weeks after Sarah left, Calder's Mill found its first dead body in 40 years. Marcus Hale, 42, a delivery driver who lived alone out on Route 9. A deer hunter found him at the edge of the Millers Creek woods, right behind our row of houses, 3 stab wounds in his chest. Our police force was 6 officers who'd never worked a homicide, so the county sent Detective Ray Munson, big, slow-talking, eye contact 2 seconds too long. The first week, no weapon, no witnesses, no suspects. Then Thursday, the local paper ran the announcement that changed everything. Monday, a county task force would grid search the entire Millers Creek woods. 40 volunteers and cadaver dogs, dogs trained to smell human remains, hunting for the weapon and buried evidence. I read that announcement Thursday morning. Friday afternoon, I walked into the police station and confessed to killing Marcus Hale. Munson didn't believe me, the one man who had it right, and nobody listened. My story. Marcus owed me gambling money. I drove out to collect, we fought, there was a knife on his counter, 3 wounds, panic, his body in my truck, dumped at the tree line, the knife off the Route 9 bridge. Munson leaned back and said, "Your story leaks everywhere, son." No blood at Marcus's house, nothing in my truck. He was right, and I already knew he'd be. So I gave him one thing, a detail never released. Not in the papers, not in the gossip. Something only the police and the killer could know. How Marcus's body was positioned, his left hand, and what was clenched inside it. Munson's face changed. I watched the doubt crack, right down the middle. How did I, a hardware store clerk who'd never seen that file, know something only the killer could know? I'll answer that, just not yet. You're not ready. Within 72 hours, my confession was signed. And that Monday grid search, the 40 volunteers, the cadaver dogs, canceled. Why comb an entire forest when the killer just told you the weapon's in the river? They dragged the river, found nothing. Nobody cared. They had me. I pled guilty at the first hearing. The judge gave me 25 years. My mother cried in the gallery. She died in year 6, still certain her son couldn't have done it. She was right, in a way she'll never get to understand. This is where people noticed something was off. Year 3, a legal aid group wrote, "My case was full of holes and they'd appeal for free." I wrote back one sentence. "Stop sending me letters." They tried again in year 5. Year 7, year 9, same answer every time. Guards asked why. Inmates asked why. What kind of innocent man fights to stay in prison? Put that next to the first question. Same answer. 11 years in a 6x9 box. And every night before I slept, I thought about the Millers Creek woods. Other men counted days until release. I prayed nobody ever counted anything in those woods. In 2020, freedom kicked my door in without asking. A man got arrested in Indiana for a stabbing at a truck stop. Routine booking, DNA swab, national database. It matched blood from under Marcus Hale's fingernails, a sample sitting untested in an evidence locker for 12 years. Why retest? The killer had confessed. The guy was a long-haul trucker with a violence record in 3 states, and his 2008 route ran right past Route 9. A robbery gone bad. That's simple. The whole time. My conviction was vacated. 11 years, 4 months, and 9 days after I walked in. I walked out as the most innocent man in Ohio, and I got famous, documentaries, podcasts. The state offered compensation, $1.1 million. I turned it down. Reporters called me too broken to touch the state's money. The truth was simpler. Accepting meant a deposition, under oath. Questions about the nights of October and November, 2008. And there is one night in October that nobody gets to touch. Every interview ends at the same question. Daniel, why did you confess? And I'd hand them the polished answer. I was falling apart after my wife left. Depressed. The interrogation crushed me. TV psychologist nodded along. It's garbage. Nobody pressured me. Munson practically threw me out of that station. I walked in calm with a story I'd rehearsed in the bathroom mirror, and I lied my way into prison, with everything other men use to lie their way out. Why? You're holding all the pieces now. The wife who was never reported missing, the detail I couldn't have known, the canceled search, the refused appeals, the refused money, one last piece. Here's what happened that night in October, the night Sarah left. We fought, the last of 1,000 fights. She said she was done. She called me a walking lie. She said another man's name, and she smiled when she said it. I shoved her. Once. Her head caught the corner of the kitchen counter with a sound I still hear every night. I didn't call an ambulance. I sat on that floor for 4 hours. Then I stood up, and I started lying. And I never stopped. I emptied half her closet, dumped her suitcase 2 towns over. And Sarah? I carried Sarah 200 yards past the tree line and buried her under the roots of an old oak in a hole I dug until my hands bled. Those woods are called Millers Creek. 3 weeks later, a trucker I never met left Marcus Hale's body 200 yards from my wife's grave. And that night, here's the answer. I was in those woods. I was packing fresh soil over Sarah when I heard something in the dark. I crawled closer, and I saw Marcus Hale, the position of his body, the left hand, the thing clenched inside it, hours before that hunter found him. The detail only the killer could know? No, the killer knew it, and so did one other man, burying a different body in the same woods. Then Thursday came. 40 volunteers, cadaver dogs. Dogs don't sniff out weapons. They smell human remains. And in that ground was a body exactly 3 weeks old. They weren't going to find a weapon that Monday. They were going to find Sarah. So I killed that search the only way possible. I handed them their killer, with a story that moved everything away from those woods. I didn't confess to cover up Marcus's murder. I confessed to cover up mine. People ask why I confessed to a murder I didn't commit, because it was the only way to make sure nobody ever asked about the one I did. Last month, the county sold the Millers Creek woods to a developer. The first foundations get dug Monday, Block C, directly on top of that old oak. They'll find her by Tuesday, and by the time you're hearing this, I won't be anywhere you can find. You wish they'd kept me locked up. Because for 11 years, prison was the only place where you knew exactly where I was. This story is fiction, but the question isn't, how many confessions do we believe, just because nobody imagines lying their way into a punishment? Subscribe for the next case.